I'm here today to share some more interesting things about the Soul's Birth album, which has just been released. And so, a question I've been getting from people is why Sanskrit and Aramaic or Hebrew? Why the bringing together of the Sanskrit Nada Yoga tradition and spiritual science and the Aramaic sacred science of sound and the Hebrew science of sound? In my direct experience, there are profound interrelationships between Sanskrit and Hebrew. And I've experientially realized this with some Hebrew singers, um, singing different mantras and different names of God from both traditions. And what I found is that the Sanskrit and the Hebrew are like two keys into a lock. Each one opens up the lock in a different way, but in a very complementary way. And singing in Sanskrit and Aramaic together, so for example, if I was singing a Sanskrit name of God and another person was singing a Hebrew name of God, or the right Hebrew name of God, they actually sonically fit together. This is not an intellectual thing, this is an experiential realization and transmission. So I discovered this many years ago, this interlocking, this complementarity, this connection, this relationship between Sanskrit and Aramaic. And Aramaic is the language that Christ spoke, that came before Hebrew. So Christ and all the apostles, Mary Magdalene, Mary Salome, Mother Mary, Joseph, all the Christ family were using Aramaic, and in particular, using Aramaic names of God. A few of those names are on the Soul's Birth album, as are a few of the Sanskrit names of God and the names of the Divine Mother, which were very beautifully sung by Kristin Hoffmann, a wonderful singer with Bella Gaia and many other projects around the world. If you haven't heard her angelic voice, please do, Kristin Hoffmann. She's an awesome lady with a simply celestial and divine voice. And I really enjoyed working with her on this album, as I did with Dr. Alex Theory, a very old soul brother of mine. And on this album, the Soul's Birth album, we spent about 7 to 8 months creating and devising this album. We had many discussions about it and what it actually meant. What is the soul's birth? Equally, it is birthing as it is dying. So the original impulse behind the album was to create a series of vibrational soundscapes and actual psycho-acoustic frequencies that would guide a mother and her child in her womb and the father through the different stages of birth. So pregnancy, labor, blissful birth, and being able to drop into the womb space in pregnancy and enter that space of creation. What we discovered as we developed the album, both sonically and philosophically, is that the birth of a child is the same as the birth of a project, a novel, an article, a career, a different movement in your life. It's like birthing yourself. And equally, in birth is also death. So birth and death, being a doula, being a midwife, you're midwifing something into creation. You're helping to co-create and bring something into creation. That's what a doula or midwife does. They help to bring the child into this world. But equally, there are doulas for dying too. So soul midwives who help souls transition from this world into the spirit world. So all of these themes and contemplations on the nature of birth, life, and death were all brought into this album thematically and then experientially. And this was a really fascinating journey that me and Alex Theory underwent. exploring all these things and then finding the frequencies, the actual psycho-acoustic frequencies that matched some of these states of consciousness. Like, for example, in the womb, the fetus moves most at the frequencies between about 110 hertz to 150 hertz. And we discovered this through a University of Berkeley science, double-blind lab science report that did these experiments over a period of time with many different pregnant women. Then we discovered that if we use those frequencies in certain pieces of music, that would also stimulate other parts of an adult person. So it's not just about the child, it stimulates the mother. And actually, by anyone listening to those frequencies, they can tap into what it is like to be in the womb space. So returning back to the womb space as an adult and being able to tune into that deep peace, that deep rest, that being held, that being cocooned, that being nurtured. That beautiful space that when we're in the womb, we are totally cocooned. And hopefully most of us felt really safe when we're in the womb. And of course, there were times when we didn't feel safe. But playing the right frequencies allows us to entrain to this frequency of safety, of peace, of deep rest, of primordial relaxation into the womb space. And of course, the womb space is the ultimate creative space that we have, that women have. So the soul's birth encompasses all of this. Yes, it is all these handrails, these very specific scientific handrails into pregnancy, into the womb, which the mother and father and baby can use. And it goes much deeper than that, into birth, birthing yourself, birthing your next project, birthing whatever it is that you want to create, going into meditation in the womb space. So this is perhaps the first album in the world to scientifically correlate the different stages of birth and pregnancy, to scientifically correlate it and then produce it. And added to that is the science of Nada Yoga from India, or Shiksha, the science of sound. So we're using certain tunings from that. And we're also using certain mantras and names of God or the Divine Mother in Sanskrit. And that allies with certain names of God and the Divine Father and the Divine Mother in the Aramaic or Christ consciousness tradition. So there's a huge amount of science and wisdom that has gone into the making of this album, which, funnily enough, was about 9 months in the making. So there was a whole pregnancy and a whole journey that me and Alex went through in creating this album. A huge amount of thought and a huge amount of time. For example, on the song Blissful Birth, we've merged 40 different tones into that song to create these very subtle waves within the song that transport you into that womb space. Because obviously the womb space is a place where these very subtle waves are happening, just as all of creation is a wave. So everything in creation is a wave movement. Everything is vibrating, everything is in this wave or spherical toroidal vortex movement. So in the music, we have created that by adding these different tones, like the Gaia frequency, the human resonance, the natural tuning of 432, the frequencies a fetus most responds to in the womb, and many other frequencies that perhaps I can talk about at another time. But all these frequencies are there to produce one thing, and that is to access our emotions or the beauty of our emotions. And so science is a servant to that, in my understanding, and definitely in this album. Science is there to provide the sonic scaffolding or the infrastructure, the basis, the foundation to that then allows beauty and those feelings, those deep emotions, to be able to come out and to be wed to the science. So the science of emotion, I call it, or science of feeling, and using the latest technology to be able to effectively carry this across. So when we made the album in Alex's studio in San Francisco, he actually rebuilt his computer and his whole studio setup to make it super quiet and to tune it to certain geometric frequencies. So he actually tuned the processors in the computer to be quieter and to run at a certain resonant frequency, which is quite amazing. And he did it specifically for this album. And just before we started recording the album, he was digging a hole in the basement of his house where his studio is, and he found a tiny Isis, Mother Isis figurine from the 1930s. And it was wrapped up in this 1930s newspaper talking about, I think, the Great Depression in America at that time. And so that we took that as a really good sign, because we discovered that before the actual recording took place, and we took that as a sign. And so that little statue of Isis, which is only about this big, which was obviously made a long time ago, that was front and center in the studio. And that was a reminder for us of what we were doing. So it was really about two men coming together under the auspices and serving, you could say, the feminine, serving the divine mother, divine feminine, in creating this album. And we both took that as a real honor and something to really aspire into and to do the very best that we could. And we're both very good at what we do. And so this kind of devotion into making this album was a deep feeling for both of us, a deep feeling of honor, actually, as men. And that really propelled us in the making of this album and, the consequent production of it that you have in your hands and on my website today. So the merging of these different sciences, the Indian science, Aramaic science, the science of psycho-acoustics, which states that everything in creation has a frequency, everything is vibrating, and we can measure that. So we've measured the Earth's frequency, we've measured the sun's frequency, the different organs in our bodies have different frequencies, and so on and so on. All the elements have frequencies, H2O, for example, water, those frequencies are in the album as well as the elements of fire. All these primordial elements have their frequencies, and they've also been used in the album. So creating this album was a real joy, is a real devotional labor of love as well. I have a son who I love dearly. And so this was kind of like on a personal level, this was kind of like a hymn of celebration for the love I have for my son and for all children. I have a really good relationship with all children wherever I go. They always notice me and always end up connecting with them and playing with them. I love kids. And my wish really is that the more conscious we are as parents, obviously the less suffering our children will have and will be passed on from our DNA to theirs. And if we look at our lives, we can see that a lot of our conditioning, our beliefs, our pains have been passed on from our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents to us. And then we have to spend a lot of time and energy and money and effort to heal these ancestral burdens, these parental patterns that we have. All of this can be avoided if we are aware of our ancestral patterns, our sexual wounds, and become conscious of it and heal it before pregnancy, during pregnancy, after pregnancy. Ideally, we can do it in pregnancy because there is a huge window open in pregnancy, a huge opportunity where all our hormones are in this cascading roller coaster journey. And that includes a man too. It's not just a woman. A man goes through a lot in pregnancy if they are emotionally open and sensitive to feel and dive into that. So this great roller coaster in pregnancy, the body is expanding, the hormones are changing, the breasts are getting bigger, the body is doing all kinds of things to expand and stretch itself in order to give birth. In this time, there's a great opportunity for healing if we know what we're doing. So my great sankalpa, my big desire, wish, intention for this album is that it goes to all the conscious would-be mothers, all the conscious would-be fathers. So they can have a conscious and loving pregnancy and a blissful and emotionally intelligent birth process. And that their child then does not have as much of the burdens and patterns of their parents that we have had to endure and heal in our journey. And that's one part of the Soul's Birth album, one deep wish of mine. The other part is I've noticed that artists and writers and other friends of mine have been using the album to meditate with, to go very deeply into altered states of consciousness, creative, deep, primordial meditations, and then also using that to create from, because a whole album is based on the process of birth and creativity that lies at the heart of all existence, of all life. And we have used those frequencies in order to create this album to do exactly that. So it can be used for so many different things. Also deep body work. If you're having a deep body work session, it'd be awesome for that. If you're wanting to create something new, be it a project, an article, a novel, a piece of art, a piece of music, whatever it is, this album is designed to help you access that state of consciousness scientifically and emotionally and spiritually. And it is also designed to stimulate those primordial parts of ourselves. And when I say primordial, I don't mean animal. I mean those deep essential parts of ourselves. So the album is designed to stimulate that and to take you to your next level, your next octave of your own creativity, of your own birthing process, of your own pregnancy and gestation of whatever it is you are gestating, be it your own self-development, be it your soul, be it a project that you want to do or wanted to do for a long time. Whatever it is that is creative, this album is directly designed to assist you with that. And as we go even deeper, as we birth something, something also dies. That's the law of nature. If we birth a child, part of our old identity dies. When we become a mother or father, we have to leave behind part of our old life, part of our own old ways of being, part of our old identity that we've become used to. We have to grow up in a certain way, as every mother and father knows. We have to grow up. And we have to step up and take that mantle of responsibility of being a father and mother for this precious little child that is being born into the world. So creativity also involves dying. Birth also involves dying. And so equally, this album can be used for people who are dying. And for soul doulas, soul midwives who are helping people transition from their body into the spirit world upon their physical death. So it's very profound, this album, and all the reviews I've got from it so far from some very noted people in the world have also confirmed that, what we set out to do and create. And so I really look forward to more feedback from all of you as you listen to the album and journey into the different worlds that each soundscape paints. So this sonic landscape of creation is what the soul's birth has been designed to do. And what it is actually painting is this picture that everything in creation is vibration. So it's quite a unique album. I do not know if something has merged both sciences of the sacred and conventional science into one thing from a lineage perspective, and has done it in this way. So it's quite unique and pioneering. I know that other people have tried to do certain things along those lines, but I know that we have taken it to another level and pioneered something that has not been done before, particularly for this birthing journey and birthing process. So I'm very proud and happy about that. And I'm also really excited to bring this to all of you, to bring it to all the new children being birthed on the earth now and in the future, and for all the would-be conscious mothers and fathers who maybe are pregnant now or shortly want to become pregnant. I want to do it in a different way to how our parents and grandparents have done it, i.e., have a loving, emotionally intelligent, caring birth process where both people are together and move through the emotions, move through the wounds, move into the pleasure and the joy and the bliss of birth, which is our natural design, not for it to be painful, but for it to be blissful. And I really support and appreciate these new children coming into earth now. I just feel they are really profound and beautiful souls. And I really wish that you have a beautiful journey with the Soul's Birth album and with everything that it reveals in you. Thank you very much for listening. Namaste, namaste, namaste.